Ladies and gentlemen, hello. We're very happy to have you today. And I mean, the topic of this panel, how new data sources can contribute to green growth. I think it's a mix of economics and very practical things. What we'll show in this panel is how precise solutions contribute to the accelerating green growth.
What does it mean for policy research? Now, first of all, of course, we're looking at green growth. So that means that next to agricultural or increase of productivity, also these data are also giving opportunities to monitor more effectively the environmental effects. And what is very important over there is to disseminate best practices between the different players in this field. The critical thing over here is, do we want certain undesirable market monopolies to develop, or do we need to put some policy on that? And what is especially also the future of those smaller farming companies? So that really focuses on data ownership, but also on the privacy of data. And finally, we need to develop a new type of big data analytics, which maybe is not at the moment very well known in the field of agriculture, in order to get to the next step from data to final practices. Okay, thank you.
We have a large amount of satellite data and ground-based data already. However, to utilize all of the data effectively, we need help of an efficient database system. Otherwise, we'd be blind to a pile of treasure. We should know what kind of data are available, where they are, and how to access to those data. And scientists know their own field very well, but in general, they are not familiar to technical terms of other disciplines. Thus, we need help to understand the technical terms among different disciplines each other. Integration of satellite on-site measurement and model outputs is essentially important, but to utilize all those data effectively, we need a tool to help us. DS will be helpful for us to use those data. Finally, I'd like to say the technology at present is limited, but the focus is to improve the technology to meet the needs for green growth.
Now, I wanted to make the development product platform utilizing the big data. From this big data, how can we get? First, we can get to building a public-private academic partnership. And second, this big data make it possible to bridge the global local gap. And third, they bring the complementary skill and experience to anyone in need. Lastly, we can get a benefit from data innovation. And by sharing and optimizing data, finally, we can create a new value.
Also, well, here we see that there's a centralized infrastructure, centralized energy markets. But when we look at the end-use equipment, it's actually not standardized. So a lot of the smart technologies, there's hundreds of different standards, and there's dozens of communication protocols. And there's not enough dialogue going on between IT and OT, what's labeled OT, which is the equipment, the electrical equipment. The second key innovation gap is a behavioral one. So we actually do not know to the extent to which consumers will actually react to technologies that bring them to the energy use, to what extent they will respond, so it's usually labeled demand response, how much will they actually be willing to shift energy use, how much will they be willing to give this kind of information to energy providers. That's linked to the relationship between energy utilities and telcos. So there's very different types of engineering happening in the energy system and electrical systems and in telecommunication systems. Data security, data privacy, access and ownership, these are emerging issues. The energy system is extremely complex, particularly electricity networks, and the security needs for different actors in the system are very different. So if there's an attack, a 5-minute gap for a consumer is not the same as a 5-minute gap for a critical infrastructure, a critical power system infrastructure. Again, there is not enough understanding of the roles and responsibilities here. And when we look at data privacy, access, and ownership, when stakeholders in the energy sector have done surveys here, they've seen there's a very notorious survey from BCG, which showed that consumers would be 5 times more ready to accept these smarter digital technologies if they knew that their access concerns would be taken into account. And that's the biggest reason for that, is that consumers are not used to engaging with this kind of data and sharing this kind of data, whereas other types of data is more common.